Hello and welcome to the next lesson in developing spatial thinking. Today we're going to be going over a subject called coded plans. So let's jump into what coded plans are. Coded plans are an illustration that we can use to translate to and from isometric drawings. And what they are is an arrangement of cubes with numbers corresponding to, rather, an arrangement of squares with numbers corresponding to each square. And the number that corresponds to each square represents the height of a stack of cubes essentially beneath that square. And in fact, a coded plan is a bird's eye view, a top-down view of an isometric drawing. So that height, that number that represents the height of a stack of cubes will inform how you draw your isometric drawing when you go from a coded plan to an isometric drawing. And one of the important things that we need to consider when we're going from a coded plan to an isometric drawing, or the other way around, is a marked viewing angle. And so coded plans have a marked viewing angle, which you can see in the illustration on the right. Now the X in the bottom right corner, that is our marked viewing angle, and you can imagine that if you were standing there and you were looking at the object that is illustrated in the coded plan, you'd see essentially what you would draw as an isometric drawing up in the top right. So in the previous module I showed you rotations of an isometric drawing. So I'm going to show you those rotations again, but I'll show you how that corresponds to the coded plan and its marked viewing angle. So on the bottom there, you notice that we're taking the same isometric drawing and we're rotating it across 270 degrees. And up above, we've got the coded plan, and it's the same exact coded plan across the board. But what we do here is that we move the marked viewing angle, looks like counterclockwise. So you can see in this first example over here, here's a marked viewing angle and we're looking onward to the object. And what that means is that we've got basically this tower of 2 right here and then this strip of 1s coming along here. And we can see that in the illustration below. If we're standing right here and we're looking on towards the object, we've got the tower of 2 right here and then we've got like a strip of 1 right here. So let's jump into some examples. I'm going to show you coming from an isometric drawing to a coded plan, and then later we'll talk about going from a coded plan to an isometric drawing. So this first example here, we're coming from an isometric drawing and we're going into a coded plan. Now I've already made the structure for the coded plan on the left there. So the first thing that we need to care about is what is going to be our viewing angle. And even if I hadn't given the structure of the coded plan, the first thing that you would want to consider is what is the viewing angle on the isometric drawing, because that will inform how you draw your coded plan. Now, based off of the isometric drawing that we see on the right and the orientation of the coded plan on the left, I'm going to mark our viewing angle here in the bottom left. And hopefully you can see why somewhat intuitively. It looks like we've got this strip of 3 cubes here, all seem to be about 1 tall, and it looks like that if we have our viewing angle on the bottom left, that we've got the same strip of cubes shooting off to our left. Based off of that viewing angle, I'm then going to start filling in the heights. Those strip of 3 cubes we can easily see are all 1 tall, so I'll mark each of those as 1 tall. Lastly, we can see that there's that stack in the back, which is only 1 cube taller, so obviously that's a stack of height 2, so I'll fill that in right there. So that will complete our coded plan. The next example here is a little bit more complicated. And again, the first thing that we want to consider is where we're going to put our marked viewing angle. Now, one thing to note is that it doesn't actually matter because the object is symmetric for all intents and purposes on the coded plan. But for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to mark our viewing angle down here. So based off of that, I'm then going to fill in the heights of the cubes based off of that viewing angle. So I can see that the first thing that's closest to me seems to be a cube of, or a stack of height 1. So I'm going to fill in a 1 right there. And then kind of to the right of that, we've got a stack of height 2 right here. So I'll fill in the 2. And then the remaining stacks are these 2 stacks right here, both of the same height. And that height appears to be 3. So I'll fill in 3s right here. Now let's move on to going from a coded plan to an isometric drawing. So here we can see that we've got a slightly more complicated coded plan than we've seen before. We've got our marked viewing angle in the bottom right, and then we've got our heights. So let's start off by drawing what's closest to us. Well, we can see that based off of this viewing angle right here, as we kind of walk to the left, we've got 2 cubes of height 1, and then we've got, as we walk to the right, we've got 1 cube of height 1 and then a space and then another cube of height 1. So I'm going to start by drawing these 2 cubes right here, and then we'll work from there. So let's start by drawing the first pair of cubes right here. Good. We've drawn our first 2 cubes. Now I notice that as I complete these 2 cubes, I've got this stack of height 2 and this stack of height 2 right next to that, and that kind of proceeds rightward from the pair of 1 tall stacks. So from there I'm going to go up. Well, they're going to go up 1 cube because, like I said, it's a stack of height 2. I'm going to continue that across these 2 cubes. I'm going to draw the very top, and then I'm going to come down, but I'm not going to come down all the way because I notice that we've got this final cube of height 1. So I'm going to draw that cube of height 1. And I believe that will complete our isometric drawing. So let's move on to the next example. In this example, we can see we've got a slightly simpler coded plan, but we've got some variance in our height. And our marked viewing angle is way up here in the top left, so we're going to have to do a little bit of mental rotation. So I'm going to draw the thing that's closest to me, which we can see as we kind of walk left from the viewing angle, we've got a stack of height 2 and then a stack of height 1. And as we walk kind of right from our viewing angle, we've got a stack of height 2. So let's draw that stack of height 2 first. Now it's important to note that with this technique of drawing what's closest to you first, you may end up doing some erasing like you saw in that previous example, but we'll go from here. So now as we walk leftward from our viewing angle, we encounter this stack of height 1, so I want to draw that stack of height 1. And we'll get rid of this line right here, redraw that there, and complete our stack of height 1. Now I want to keep going, and so diagonal right behind that previous stack of height 2, we have another stack of height 2. So we'll draw that in. Oh. And finally, we've got a final stack of height 3 way in the back here. So we'll draw that as just one taller than the stack of height 2, and that shoots off to the left here a little bit. And that will complete our illustration. Alright, so that ends this module. Be sure to complete the homework associated with this module before you move on to the next one, and I will see you in the next lesson.